Good afternoon. Today I'm going to be reviewing the Revelot Hexmariner 39 Blue Aventurine Steel. This watch is available from Revelot.com for 1,385 Malaysian ringgits, which is $308 or €299. Revelot are a well-established micro-brand. They were founded in 2017 and they're based in Malaysia. So firstly, let's look at the box that the watch comes in, and then I'll talk you through the specifications of the piece. So the watch comes in this black cardboard box. One withdraws the drawer from the sleeve, which is a snug fit. And as you can see, the drawer is finished in contrasting gilt and black, and the base is upholstered with a contrasting cream velour fabric to a good standard. In the left-hand compartment, the watch sits on a padded pillow cushion, which is upholstered with cream velour fabric. Now, this is okay, but I think that Revelot could do better. For example, they could use a PU leather or vinyl travel case or a plastic watch box. These kind of cardboard watch boxes are acceptable for low-tier pieces costing €100, but we're looking at a €299 price point piece in the low tier, and this is the default option, a cardboard watch box. I would like to see better quality packaging and presentation than this. Now, with regards to the items, you simply get this card. Now, I'm pleased to report the Hexmariner 39 is covered by a 2-year international warranty, and Revelot deserve credit for this because often low-tier pieces at €299 are only covered by a 12-month international warranty. To get 2 years of warranty is good. On the reverse, there are 2 QR codes. You can scan the left-hand QR code with your iPhone or Android, and that will download the owner's instruction manual. You can scan the right-hand QR code, and that will download the terms and conditions of the 2-year international warranty. More brands in the low tier are using this as an alternative to printing out a leaflet or a booklet for the owner's instruction manual, and as an alternative to using a plastic warranty card, they simply use QR codes you scan. Personally, I prefer to see a leaflet or alternatively a booklet printed and also a plastic warranty card, but this is subjective. Some collectors like the convenience of QR codes they can scan with their iPhone or Android. So with regards to the specifications of the piece, we have a 39mm case diameter. We have a 44.8mm lug-to-lug measurement, a thickness of 13.1mm, and a lug width of 20mm. The Hexad bracelet tapers from 20mm at the lugs down to 18mm at the 2-button push micro adjustment clasp. The 2-button push clasp is signed with the Hexmariner emblem to a good standard. The Revelot emblem to a good standard. Brushed satin finish to the body complements the brushed satin finishing to the flanks, and also the bevels are brushed satin finished, which give the piece a tall watch aesthetic. Now, the thing to note is the Hexmariner 39 is available with 2 clasp options. This is the updated version with the micro adjustment ratcheting mechanism, which we'll test, but they also offer this piece with the earlier version of the clasp, which has 5 holes in the flanks. Now, I think it's worth paying the extra for the micro adjustment clasp, but if you want a less expensive Hexmariner 39, you can still opt for the 5-hole clasp. We have a flat sapphire crystal with blue tinted AR coating, and the blue tinted anti-reflective coating does an outstanding job of reducing the glare and the highly reflective nature of the silver mirror polished applied indices and silver mirror polished handset. Nice hexagon profile to the indices, which make a refreshing change from using the default round and rectangular indices as per the Submariner maxi dial layout. And also the hands have a nice shape, and again Revelot deserve credit because they haven't just used the default option of baton hands or Mercedes style hands. They've come up with their own hands which have hexagon profiles to them, which matches the continuity of the Hexmariner. There are hexagons all the way through the design. Now, this version of the Hexmariner 39 is the Blue Aventurine Steel. So, the dial is aventurine finished, as you can see, which sparkles. So it has a navy blue tone to it, which is glossy, like an enamel dial, but it sparkles. When you tilt the piece in the light, the aventurine catches the light. So it's got sparkles in it, rather like stars in the sky. Very aesthetically pleasing and nice attention to detail. The negative of using an aventurine dial is the date complication is very deep. If you look at the date wheel, which is black with white Arabic numerals, the problem with a thick dial is it creates a shadow which is permanent around the date. So when you look at the date, you can see the date wheel is very deep beneath a thick dial. And I think they could improve upon this. They could either recess the sides of the date window, or alternatively they could use a thinner aventurine dial, because the problem with the shadow on the black date wheel is it's very dark and that reduces the legibility. If they used a white date wheel with contrasting black Arabic numerals, that would actually improve the legibility, but by using a black date wheel with white printed Arabic numerals, the legibility is poor. If you look at the rehorts, you can see it does have the characteristic deep rehorts one expects with an NH35A automatic powered piece. But they've done a very good job of the rehort because it's brushed satin finished, and they've laser engraved Hexmariner and Revelot repeated all the way around it, and it's very well done. Nice crisp high definition laser engraving to Hexmariner and Revelot, and it's good attention to detail, and one doesn't often see laser engraved rehorts at this price point. It's something one sees on high tier pieces such as the Rolex Submariner and Submariner Date respectively, but one doesn't often see it on €299 price point pieces like this. So the quality of the laser engraving all the way round the rehort is very good, and the quality of the brushed satin finishing is very good, so nice attention to detail. With regards to the quality of the printing on the dial, it is very good. It's high definition, it's not blurry, the font is not too thick. So the minute ticks on the chapter ring are clearly legible, and also the text on the dial. Just bear with me and I'll move the minute hand out of the way, and then you'll be able to see the text better. So, as you can see, at 6 o'clock we have Hexmariner automatic, and then the water resistance rating 660 feet equals 200 meters. So just the right amount of information, 3 lines of text. The dial isn't cluttered and too busy. It's not over branded with unnecessary text and specification. Just the model, Hexmariner, automatic, and the water resistance. So I like that they've got 3 lines of text. Often low tier brands have a tendency to print unnecessary words on the dial, such as water resistant. It's a given that the water resistant 660 feet equals 200 meters refers to the water resistance. So Hexmariner and automatic are relevant, and also the water resistance is relevant because this is a dive piece. So good symmetry to the dial, and they've made the correct decision by placing the date complication at 6 because it retains the symmetry of the dial rather than placing it at the default 3 o'clock position. I like the hexagon profile to the indices. It does add interest to it, and they are correctly proportioned. The legibility of the handset is good. The legibility of the hexagon applied indices is also good. The mirror polishing to the indices is very good. Also, I like that they're not flat hands, because if you look at the hands, they are faceted. The edge of the hands have mirror polished facets, but the center section of the hands are longitudinally brushed satin finish, so they have a nice 3D effect. And I like it. Also, the colour tone match of the BGW9, which is applied to the indices and the hands, perfectly matches. They have the same white tone. There's no colour tone mismatch, so they deserve credit for that. The ceramic bezel insert is also fully inlaid with BGW9 to a good standard. Quality of the engraving to the ceramic of the minute ticks in the first quarter and also the Arabic numerals is very good. It's nice and sharp and crisp, high definition engraving, and they've done a good job in filling with BGW9. Now, the bezel also follows the continuity of the angular profiles of the Hexmariner. We've got sharp teeth, so it is a scalloped bezel rather than a gear tooth profile or coin edge finish bezel, but it's got angular pointed teeth to it rather than curved scallops as per a Submariner or Submariner Date, for example. And I like the angular profile to the teeth. They do fit the aesthetic of the angles on the rest of the piece, but they're also very grippy and tactile without having any sharp tips to the teeth. So they've done a very good job, because the top edge of the stainless steel bezel, which is solid 316L grade stainless steel, is mirror polished to a very good standard, but they've also chamfered the teeth of the bezel. So they don't feel sharp, they don't dig into one's index finger and thumb, but you get good purchase. It's very grippy and tactile. Proportions of it are very nice, and the mirror polishing to the angular teeth is very good. I like the way it catches the light, and it makes a refreshing change from using a coin edge bezel or the other default option, which is a gear tooth profile to the bezel. Case finishing is very good. I like the angular profiles to the head of the piece, and they've got nice mirror polished bevels, which are also angular profile, and they mark the transition between the brushed satin finish top of the angular lugs and the flanks, as you can see. Beautiful luster to the longitudinal brushed satin finishing to the flanks. Nice fine grained finish to the brushed satin finishing. It's good quality finishing. No sharp undercut to the flanks, so they've deburred and chamfered the undercut to the case very well, and the tips of the lugs have been chamfered and deburred very well. So although it does have angular lugs to the head of the piece, there are no sharp edges, no sharp corners to it whatsoever. Quality of the brushed satin finishing is high. Quality of the mirror polishing to the bevels is also high. Now, with regards to the end links, as you can see, they are male end links. I think they could further enhance the fit of this piece and the comfort level if they use female pivoted end links, because if you look at the centre section of the angular end links, you can see it's a large slab of 316L grade stainless steel. The problem with that is it doesn't allow the end link in the Hexad bracelet to articulate beneath the tips of the lugs. And bear in mind, this is a compact case. It's a 39mm and it has a short lug to lug of only 44.8. So clearly its intention is to fit collectors with a smaller wrist of 6 to 7 inches. The Hexmariner, the full size version, will suit collectors with a larger 7 to 8 inch wrist respectively. So it lacks female pivoted end links. The male end links mean that the lug-to-lug measurement feels longer than its 44.8. But on a positive note, the end link in the Hexad bracelet does articulate smoothly. It doesn't feel stiff, it doesn't kink. But however, the negative is we do have some side-to-side play, so it rattles. And we also have some longitudinal, lateral and up and down play. And this is simply down to poor quality tolerances. The pin which goes through the centre of the end link, which is a male end link, and also the Hexad bracelet outer links, as you can see, is a poor interference fit. It should be a friction fit, an interference fit, but it's sloppy because the hole is either too large or alternatively the pin is undersized. And as you can see, it clicks. Lateral, longitudinal, up and down, side to side play in every direction. This is acceptable. One can be magnanimous about this kind of poor build quality on a piece that costs below €100 in the low tier. But we're looking at a low tier piece which is more expensive. This is €299. It's unacceptable. Now, with regards to the Hexad bracelet, brushed satin finishing has a beautiful lustre to it, and the Hexad links do catch the light, and the lustre is very aesthetically pleasing. No sharp edges to the top edge or the under edge of the flanks, and they've mirror polished the top edge bevels on the Hexad links to a good standard. So I like the mirror polishing to the bevels. They catch the light, but they also work very well to deburr and chamfer it, so there's no sharp edge, and also it doesn't pull arm hairs. It articulates freely, so the positive is that there are no stiff links. The bracelet doesn't kink, so that's very good. The negative is that this uses push pins as a cost-cutting measure. I would like to see Revelot update the Hexmariner 39 to screw pins, because at this price point, €299, one expects to see screw pins in the bracelet rather than push pins. The negative of using push pins, as you can see, is it's a sloppy bracelet. So every single one of the Hexad links in the Hexad bracelet has too much play. Longitudinal, lateral, side-to-side play, up and down play. And if you look at the last link in the bracelet in particular, it's got a very poor interference fit. It shakes side to side. We've got significant lateral play and also longitudinal play. Up and down play, lateral, side to side, longitudinal play in every single direction. The end link in the bracelet is the worst, as you can see. Now I'm just going to check the other side for continuity. Again, the Hexad bracelet rattles. Every single one of the push pin Hexad links has too much play. This is simply down to the holes being too large or the pins, the push pins, being undersized. It's easy to tighten up the tolerances because you either drill a smaller hole or use a larger pin, and you press in the pin with an interference fit to tighten up the tolerances. So poor quality build quality, quality control and tolerances. Now again, the end link in the Hexad bracelet is the worst of the lots, as you can see. We're looking at significant play. Lateral, longitudinal. The side-to-side play is also very bad. It clicks. And look at that play. Now again, one can be magnanimous at €100 or below in the low tier, but this is $299. That amount of play is wholly unacceptable. So it's a shame because the brushed satin finishing is good. The mirror polishing to the bevels on the edge of the top edge are good. Doesn't pull arm hairs, but rattles. It's a sloppy bracelet. Good head of the piece, poor quality bracelet. So let's look at the clasp in detail. Beautiful luster to the outer body, beautiful luster to the flanks. Nice large bevels, so good heavy gauge to it, and it does look very aesthetically pleasing with the Revelot hexagon emblem engraved to a good standard. I like the longitudinal line engraved as well. It does add some interest to it. So beautiful luster. No sharp edges to the top edge, and the lower edge doesn't have sharp corners, so they've deburred and chamfered it very well. Good frame resistance to the two spring-loaded triggers. The interior is solid mill 316L grade stainless steel, as one would expect. Beautiful luster to the brass satin finishing. Doesn't have sharp edges to the top edge, lower edge of the flanks, and there aren't any sharp corners to the centre section. Let's check the hinge pins. Unfortunately, we've got significant play in the left-hand hinge pin. Lateral, longitudinal, side-to-side, up and down play. This side-to-side play is very bad. It clicks. So when this is on wrist, it makes a clicking noise and it rattles. Just look at the amount of play. Again, one can be magnanimous below €100. This is €299. Wholly unacceptable. Let's check the centre pin. Again, lateral, longitudinal, side to side, up and down play. Play in every single direction. Not acceptable. Let's check the right hand hinge pin. Again, it wobbles. Lateral, side to side, up and down play. Play in every direction. The cumulative effect of this is the left hand, centre and right hand pin all have excessive play, and overall that makes the solid mill clasp rattle. Now my concern about this, as always, is the long term durability of this, because if you're going to be opening and closing this on a daily basis, how long is it going to be before the elongated holes in the milled clasp, or alternatively the underside pins in the hinges, snap or shear due to the excessive shear load put on them, or alternatively the rivets on the ends wear off in the elongated holes? It's always a concern, long-term durability, when you have too much play in the three hinge pins. Left-hand hinge pin, centre hinge pin, right-hand hinge pin, all three, too much play, rattle. It needs to be refined. Now, lastly, they've made a mistake. They've engraved stainless steel upside down. They need to invert this. It's usually the case. I'll clarify this. When you take a watch off wrist, this is the way it is up, and then you turn it round this way, press the two button push triggers and open the clasp this way, like so. So it's a given that you're going to be reading the text which is engraved the right way up. Stainless steel should be the correct way up. It's upside down. You do not take off the watch and then turn it around like this. So they've made a mistake. They simply need to invert the engraving. Stainless steel shouldn't be upside down. These are the fundamentals you have to get right. Now, on a positive note, this is the updated version of the clasp. As I've detailed, the Hexmariner 39 is available with the earlier 5-hole clasp, or alternatively this version, which has ratcheting micro adjustment. So it's got a firm spring-loaded trigger to it, which you press your index finger or thumb into, and that deploys it. So I'll do it with my thumb now. Now, this gives one full link of adjustment. Now, in the absence of half links in the Hexad bracelet, it's beneficial to have one full link of micro adjustment, because sometimes in the absence of half links, adding or subtracting one full link from a Hexad bracelet does not give the perfect fit. The bracelet either feels slightly too tight or slightly too loose, so one needs a half link either side of the clasp. In the absence of it, a ratcheting micro adjustment does that job. Now, this pushes in with nice heavy clicks, but it really does take a lot of effort. It needs a lot of force. You really have to push it in hard with your thumb. So there's room for refinement, because the clicks feel notchy, they feel gritty and stiff, they don't feel fluid and smooth. I have experienced much better ratcheting mechanisms with a similar mechanism. For example, they have the same style. They have this spring-loaded trigger which you push in with your thumbnail or index finger. Now, they do work well, but the tolerances need to be refined. They need to be tight, but also smooth. Now, the problem with this one is it's rough and gritty. It doesn't deploy smoothly. There's a lot of friction, and the friction is caused by the 316L grade stainless steel rubbing against the 316L grade stainless steel. So it rattles inside the body. As you can see, there's a lot of space, there's a lot of play. So you would think it would be a loose fit. It would articulate smoothly, deploy smoothly and close up smoothly. But it doesn't. The truth is, there's a lot of friction. So you really have to push it in hard. And each click is very heavy, but there's also excessive friction. So you've really got to press it in hard with your thumb. It does work okay, but it's not pleasant to use because you've got to force it in. And the other thing is when you deploy it, when you press in your thumbnail or index fingernail into the trigger, you have to really press hard and then pull it hard. It doesn't pull out easily. Like I'm really having to pull it hard to actually get the thing to deploy like that. And it doesn't happen the first time every time you do it. You have to keep pulling and keep pulling and keep pulling and press the trigger 2 or 3 times to finally get it to release, and then it deploys. So it's a frustrating micro adjustment clasp. It's just not pleasant to use. You can get used to it. I mean, you can press it in with a good hard push. Each of the clicks do work okay. And then you can press in your thumbnail very hard, and then you can pull it really hard 2 or 3 times. And then finally, on the 3rd attempt, it will deploy. It's just not refined. I appreciate the Revelot are trying their best to update the 5-hole clasp to a ratcheting mechanism micro adjustment clasp, which is a positive, but they're just not doing a good job of it. It's not as refined and smooth. There's room for improvement with regards to the machining, the quality control, the build quality, and the tolerances to reduce the friction, because it doesn't work very well. Really, you shouldn't have to push it in with such hard force to get every single click to push in. And you shouldn't have to press in the trigger so hard and then pull it 2 or 3 times so hard to get the thing to finally deploy. Not a good quality micro adjustment clasp. It's disappointing. It would be acceptable at €100, but at €299 one expects higher quality refinement. Now let's look at the Caseback. Exhibition Caseback glazed with mineral crystal, and they've decorated it with this hexagon logo repeated, as you can see, which is metallic. It's got a glossy gilt finish to it. I think they've made a mistake here because it defeats their point of using an exhibition caseback. The purpose of an exhibition caseback is to show off the movements. But what they've done is they've glazed it to show off the movements, but then they've covered up the glazing with this silver decoration, so you can't actually see the movements. You have to make the decision, is it an exhibition caseback or is it not? If you're going to just engrave a logo or an emblem or decorate it with hexagons, you can simply do that with a solid stainless steel caseback. You don't use an exhibition caseback and then cover up the glazing with silver like this. I just think it's a shame that they didn't just leave it with a mineral crystal and show the NH35A automatic off. They could have just engraved this into a solid stainless steel caseback. It's subjective. Some collectors might like it. I dislike it. I think it's nonsense. But on a positive note, it doesn't have a large bubble back profile to it. So the centre section, which is glazed with mineral crystal, is nice and flat and therefore smooth against the wrist. On a positive note, it's engraved to a good standard around the circumference, which is CNC lathe tool machined with the specification. So we've got 200 meters. It says Japan automatic, stainless steel and sapphire glass. So the front of the piece is glazed with sapphire crystal, the exhibition caseback is glazed with mineral crystal, and the exhibition caseback provides an effective hermetic seal to 200 meters, which is strong specification. The milled slots are deburred and chamfered to a good standard, so no sharp edges to the milled slots, and the quality of the CNC lathe tool machining are very good. So nice and smooth, no sharp edges. Now, with regards to the male end links, they're a nice tight fit to the head of the piece, and Revelots have made the correct decision by using quick release stainless steel spring bars rather than standard spring bars, and therefore that negates the need to use a spring bar tool to remove the bracelet if you want to fit a strap. So end links are well machined, no sharp edges, and the quick release spring bars work very well. The undercuts to the head of the piece are deburred and chamfered very well, nice large chamfers to the tips of the lugs, so no sharp corners to the tips of the lugs, and the case is finished to a very high standard. Right, so I'll give you wrist shots and you can see how it fits on my 8-inch wrist. Now, I'm pleased to report I can easily slide an index finger beneath the bracelet and clasp at all times. Now, bear in mind, this is on the bracelet's minimum extension on the micro adjustment clasp, so this will easily fit up to a 9-inch wrist. This is on the minimum on the micro adjustment, and it fits my 8-inch wrist easily. It would actually fit up to an 8.5-inch wrist. So plenty of length on the bracelet. That's a positive if you have a larger wrist. Now, I think they've made a mistake with the proportions of the Hexad bracelet. It tapers from 20 to 18. 22 to 18 is the industry standard. Alternatively, 20 to 16 is the industry standard. 20 to 18 is not so popular because it makes the bracelet look too straight and parallel rather than having a nice gradual taper. 2mm of taper across the length of the bracelet isn't enough because the problem with the Hexad bracelet links is they are very thick and angular and they add significant heft to the piece. It's a very meaty bracelet. If they had used the correct taper, 20 to 16, that would have reduced the meat, the heft, the amount of metal in the bracelet. And that would have significantly reduced the overall heft of the piece. It's a very heavy 39mm. We're looking at 164 grams. 164 grams is the kind of heft one would expect with a 40 or 41mm piece on a solid bracelet, not a 39. This is a small piece. I would expect this to be below 150 grams. 164 means that it feels very top heavy, and it also doesn't feel balanced because we've got a heavy head of the piece with a heavy Hexad bracelet and a solid micro adjustment clasp. All of these things add significant heft to the piece. Anything below 150 grams is the sweet spot for comfort level. If you're going to wear a piece for long periods of time, such as 8 to 12 hours per day, 150 or below is the sweet spot. Therefore, 20 to 16 is the perfect taper. 20 to 18 means too much meat on the bracelet, and that means the 150 sweet spot of heft is exceeded significantly. This is 164. It's got 14 grams of too much heft, and that's down to the bracelet. They could reduce the bracelet by 14 grams simply by making the taper 20 to 16 rather than 20 to 18. So it's a fundamental error. On a positive note, it is very aesthetically pleasing. I like the angular profile of the head of the piece. Also like the angular profile to the teeth of the bezel and the Hexad bracelet, and also the large mirror polished bevels which are machined on the edge of the angular link. So it does have a beautiful luster. I like the way it catches the light, but male end links have a large slab in the centre, as you can see. And although the centre section of the male end link does have an angle to it, this would look so much better and it would fit so much better with female pivoted end links. This is a 39mm. On a 6 to 7 inch wrist, you're going to find that male end link to be too angular. It sticks out too far, and we have this large gap underneath the Hexad link in the bracelet as a result. With a female pivoted end link, that would pull the end link in the Hexad bracelet snug to the wrist. It would enhance the comfort level and enhance the look of it as well, aesthetically. So male end links are a mistake, and taper on the bracelet is a mistake. 164 grams feels too heavy. Now, of course, if you have a smaller wrist, you're going to be removing 4 or 5 links from the Hexad bracelet, and that will reduce it. The other thing to note is this micro adjustment clasp is very bulky. It's long, but also thick, and also the profile of it is very tall. As you can see, it sticks up from the wrist. Now, it does curve and wrap around the wrist, which is okay on a large wrist of 7 to 8 inches. But if you have a 6 to 7 inch wrist, you're going to find the length has too much overhang for comfort. The other thing is it's very wide and also very tall, so it sticks out from the wrist. So on a 6 to 7 inch wrist, this is going to be too bulky. Now bear in mind, this is a 39mm and it has a short, compact lug-to-lug of 44.8, so it's clearly intended for collectors with a smaller 6 to 7 inch wrist. But clasp is too bulky for that. That's something to bear in mind. But aesthetically pleasing piece. The aventurine dial catches the light and with its sparkles, rather like stars in the sky. And the colour tone match is good. The navy blue ceramic bezel has a nice glossy finish and it complements the navy blue aventurine dial. So the colour tone match is good, and it does look like an aesthetically pleasing piece. It's just a shame it doesn't have female pivoted end links and a 20 to 16 taper bracelet. Right, so let's test the bezel execution and the screw down crown execution. So 120 click unidirectional bezel, as one would expect. Light resistance to it. I personally prefer a medium or firm resistance, but this is subjective. Some collectors like a light bezel execution. In terms of the resistance, it feels similar to a Pagani designed PD1661, which has a light bezel action. It feels lighter than a Seiko 5KX, and it feels lighter than a Steel Dive SD 1953, which you'll be familiar with. No lateral side-to-side play, no back play. So, although it's light resistance, it does feel tight in terms of play. Let's check the alignment. One more click. Perfect. So the bezel aligns correctly. The diamond-shaped Lume pip, or the inlay of the BGW9 diamond, does align correctly with the 12 o'clock index on the dial and the 60-minute tick on the chapter ring. So bezel execution is good. It does feel even all the way through the 360 degrees. So the bezel execution is good, although I think they could refine it and make it medium or firm resistance, because that would make it feel more robust and solid. So with regards to the crown, solid 3160 grade stainless steel, coin edge finished, nice large chamfer to it, which is brushed satin finished. And interestingly, they've inlaid it with BGW9 Super Luminova. This is something one doesn't often see at this price point, a lumed crown, which we'll test in the lume test. So let's test unscrewing it. It feels smooth. Now, it's not silky smooth. There is some friction. It is okay. It does unscrew with a minimum number of turns, and 200 meters is strong specification, but there's room for refinement with regards to the interface between the internal thread of the stainless steel crown and the external thread of the stainless steel crown tube. You can feel the friction of the rubber O-ring gaskets rubbing against the stainless steel. You can also feel the friction of the threads rubbing against each other. So they could improve the tolerances and the machining of the internal thread of the crown and the external thread of the stainless steel crown tube to refine it, to make it silky smooth. It is possible to do that at this price point, €299. So when unscrewed, you can manually wind the Seiko NH35A automatic to its maximum 41-hour power reserve. One can feel the tension in the mainspring gradually building up, medium resistance to it. It feels nice and smooth to manually wind, so it's a pleasure to manually wind the NH35A. Pulling it out to the first click position is the quick set date complication. So if you look closely at the date window at 6 o'clock, you can see the date clicks over with a nice positive click, and it's something I really like about the NH35A. Nice, positive, heavy indexing. The dates click over with a nice heavy click, so it's very satisfying to use the quick set complication. It's just a shame that the aventurine dial is so thick, because it creates this permanent shadow around the black date wheel. I really think this would look better with a white date wheel with black Arabic numerals, because that would improve the legibility. It's permanently shaded due to the thickness of the dial, and the problem is the date wheel is too far away from the sapphire crystal, so the legibility is poor as a result. But the proportions of the white Arabic numerals are correct, and the alignment left to right and up and down is correct, so the framing is good. Pulling it out to the second click position hacks the movement. If you look at the second hand, which has a nice Lume pip, which is also a hexagon shape, which is good. The continuity of design is good. You can see it's now stopped dead, so it's possible to set the time precisely to the second with the NH35A. Nice light resistance to the gearing. Clockwise and anti-clockwise, it feels smooth. Minimal back play. When you rotate the crown clockwise and anti-clockwise, there's slight slack you have to take up, but you get used to it, and once you become accustomed to it, it's an absolute pleasure to set the time. Pressing it back in, it's got a nice positive click, and the second hand begins to sweep around the dial at 3 Hz once again. So let's test screwing it back down. Immediate thread pickup. So there's a perfect interface between the internal thread of the stainless steel crown and the external thread of the stainless steel crown tube. But one can feel the friction of the metal to metal and also the rubber O-rings rubbing against the winding stem and also the crown. So there's room for refinement. It's not silky smooth, but it is okay. Right, so let's do a lume test, and we'll see how the lume performs when it's charged up to the absolute maximum. So as always, I'm going to use my 100 UV LED torch to charge it up to the absolute peak. Right, so that's now fully charged, and as you can see, it has not disappointed. So we're clearly looking at 5 to 6 layers of BGW9 Super Luminova on the ceramic bezel insert, the applied indices and the handset. Good colour tone match. The BGW9 has a nice blue tone to it, and the exciter in the BGW9 is glowing brightly. So this is clearly 5 to 6 layers, not the cost-cutting measure of 3 to 4 layers. I like the exciter in BGW9 because it has a nice white blue tone to it. Now, the minute ticks in the first quarter of the ceramic bezel insert are very good, high definition engraving, and they've done a very good job of inlaying the engraved ceramic bezel insert with BGW9. Large diamond for the lume pip, which is inlaid, and good attention to detail. It's nicely engraved, high definition. So the quality of the engraving to the ceramic bezel insert and the inlay of BGW9 is very good. The proportions of the handset are very good, and you can clearly differentiate between the minute hand and the hour hand because the minute hand is significantly longer. Nice large area, nice large plots of BGW9. Also, I like the hexagon shape to the pip on the sweeping second hand. It's good to see that. So colour tone match is good, symmetry of the dial is good with the date complication at 6 rather than the default position of 3. And I like the use of BGW9. It's glowing very brightly and it will continue to glow for a good length of time. So Revelot deserve credit here because they haven't cut any production costs with regards to the quality of the BGW9 they're using. This is clearly high quality BGW9 Superlume Nova. Outstanding performance. Right, so let's discuss the movement used. You will all be familiar with this Seiko NH35A automatic. Now, they're using the Japanese-made version rather than the Malaysian-made version. The NH35A has been in use since 2011, so at this stage in 2025 it's a reliable, well-proven workhorse movement. It has 24 joules and it runs at 21,600 vibrations per hour and a frequency of 3 Hz. It has hand winding and hacking, which is used for complications, and a quick set date complication, which, as I've demonstrated, works very well. 41-hour power reserve is perfectly acceptable. The stated accuracy of the NH35A is -20 to +40 seconds per day, so a rather wide accuracy range. However, I'm pleased to report that Revelot are doing a good job of regulating the NH35As they're using. This one is running consistently at +8 seconds per day. +8 is well within the stated accuracy of -20 to +40, although they could do better. If they regulated it in 5 positions, it is possible to regulate an NH35A to ±5 seconds per day. But +8 is good enough. Now, there's one thing I didn't show you in the Lume test, which I've remembered, and I'm going to do it now. This has a fully loomed crown. So they've engraved the Revelot emblem into it and inlaid it with BGW9. So I want to show that off because one doesn't often see a loomed crown at this price point of €299. Right, so that's now fully charged, and as you can see, this is what the fully loomed crown looks like. And it does add interest to it. Now the exciter is glowing very brightly in the engraved Revelot emblem in the crown. And it's very high definition engraving, but we're clearly looking at 5 to 6 layers. As you can see, the exciter is glowing very brightly, and there's a good colour tone match between the BGW9 on the crown and also the ceramic bezel insert, the dial and the hands, as I've demonstrated. So this does add some interest to it, the fully loomed crown. Now, I understand that on earlier Hexmariner pieces, the crown wasn't loomed, but Revelot decided to update it, and then they inlaid the engraving with BGW9 just to add some interest to it. And as you can see, the exciter is glowing very brightly, and it will continue to glow for a good length of time. So it's an interesting feature of the Hexmariner 39 to have that fully loomed crown, something different from other low-tier brands at this price point of €299. So I just wanted to show that to you because I forgot to show it to you in the Lume test. So last I'll summarise the piece. What do I think of it overall? Well, when I'm considering reviewing a watch on my channel, the watch meets 2 criteria. It should be both excellent quality and excellent value at the respective price point. So low tier piece, the price point is 1,385 Malaysian ringgits, which is $308 or €299. I'm going to declare it good quality, but I'm going to declare the value as okay. Now, the reason why I'm not going to say the value is good or excellent is because there are some build quality or quality control defects. The main disappointment of this piece is the male end links having too much play, and also the push pins in the Hexad bracelet have too much play. Also, as I showed you, the 3 hinge pins have too much play. Lastly, it's a disappointment. They've updated the 5-hole clasp to the micro adjustment clasp, which is positive, but it's just not pleasant to use. It's very stiff and it feels like there's too much friction. You've really got to pull it out hard to get it to deploy. So it's a good quality piece, but there's room for refinement in several areas. The crown is not silky smooth. It could be improved. If they updated the Hexad bracelet to screw pins, that would tighten up the build quality and the tolerances and remove this rattle. It's a sloppy bracelet. We're not looking at a €100 piece, we're looking at €299. Sloppy bracelets and sloppy end links and sloppy hinge pins are not acceptable with a stiff micro adjustment clasp. It's possible to get it better at this price point. So I'm going to recommend it to you for consideration, but bear in mind the shortcomings. I hope you've enjoyed my review of the Revelot Hexmariner 39 Blue Aventurine Steel. Please feel free to post your own comments below the video. Thank you for watching.